Older than me,
So each small town.
but if you, she thinks she's 100.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Finance Committee meeting. Just a couple of housekeeping things. This is our first meeting with a new member, Mary Beth Very. I'd like to welcome Mary Beth aboard. Excited to have you.
Thank you.
And this is our first meeting with our new town manager, Jill Cahill, who has been here a while already, so we're excited to have you
Didn't
here.
even know we had one.
But if we could just go down the row, and for the benefit of Mary Beth, who I think probably knows most of us, but also Jill, if we could just introduce ourselves, that would be great.
Do you think she doesn't know us?
Well, I'm going to give
Jill?
her the benefit of the doubt.
I'm Arthur Stramus.
Mary Beth Berry.
Paul Pollack.
C.R. Lyons.
Ted Blake. Mike Landers. Wally Typer.
And Eric Mitchell is hopefully going to be joining us in a little while. So we're meeting this evening this is a workshop essentially for the Finance Committee to better understand the work of the Review Committee, which was yeoman's work. I think, are all impressed by the work that's in front of us. For us to just kind of better understand where the committee came from in terms of their ideas and what they've proposed for the community. So, Sally, if you'd like to.
Thank you very much, CR, and thanks to the whole Finance Committee. It's nice to see many of you again, and for the members that have come on board since I left, you guys do an amazing job. So my name is Sally Calhoun. I'm a town meeting member, but I was also appointed by the moderator to serve on the Town Manager Acts Review Committee. I served as its chair. I was one of 10 members. It was a very hardworking, very diligent group. So on behalf of the Town Manager Acts Review Committee, several members of which are here tonight, I want to thank the Finance Committee for placing our report on your agenda for tonight. We're looking forward to sharing our report with you and with the entire town of Danvers. We made a presentation similar to this to the Select Board on September 23rd. We've since met with them 2 times substantively to talk with them about the revisions or the recommendations we've made. I'm delighted to have a chance to come and talk with you all as well. So on May 20, 2024, the annual town meeting voted to establish a citizens committee appointed by the town moderator for the purpose of reviewing as well as updating the Danvers Town Meeting Act and the Danvers Town Manager Act. Those 2 acts established the representative town meeting form of government that we have here in Danvers and the strong town manager form of government. The vote in May of 2024 also asked us to prepare a written report of our findings and conclusions. That was all in warrant article number 7. Also, town meeting voted to refer the citizen petition regarding recall provisions to our committee for review. That was warrant article 38. The town moderator then appointed a committee of 10, consisting of 1 town meeting member per precinct, 1 at-large member, and 1 chair. From Precinct 1, Nova Samadai served on the committee. From Precinct 2, Natalie Fiore. Precinct 3, John Almeida. Precinct 4, Mary Beth Very. Precinct 5, Dan Gagnon. Precinct 6, Fawn Anderson. Precinct 7, Noah Levitt. Precinct 8, Mike Matvichik. At-large member was John Jaworski, and as I already mentioned, I was appointed as the chair. It's been really an honor to have worked with these 9 people. Everybody worked really hard and shared some really important and great ideas. The Town Meeting Act was first adopted in 1930, and it changed the town of Danvers from an open town meeting to its current representative town meeting. The act was last reviewed 50 years ago, over 50 years ago, in 1973. The Town Manager Act was adopted in 1949. It established the strong town manager form of government and was last updated almost 30 years ago in 1997. Our committee met 19 times from July of 2024 to May of 2025 for a total of almost 39 hours. All meetings were public. Our meetings were televised by DCAT. We had several invited guests and input of many citizens of the town. We grappled with multiple viewpoints, debated all sides of the issues before us, and worked hard to come to a consensus. I should have thought of this earlier today, but I was hoping that you all had a copy of our report, which I believe was dated May 13, 2025, and it looks like you have. Thank you very much, Jill, for coordinating that. I have some reason to believe you might have had something to do with that. But attached to that report are our recommendations for changes to the Town Meeting Act and the Town Manager Act, shown as red-lined proposed edits. Most of our proposals reflect the September 15, 2020 vote of the Board of Selectmen to change from a Board of Selectmen to a Select Board. Most of our other changes also expand pronouns to be more inclusive, and some of our proposed changes simply attempt to clarify language which we found confusing. But I wanted to give you a quick sketch of the substantive proposals we've made for change, beginning with the Town Meeting Act. In the process of reviewing and discussing the Town Meeting Act, we were most concerned about finding ways to encourage more active participation by citizens of the town of Danvers in governance and in the operations of the town, making sure that everybody has a voice and a way to become involved as they are able and as they wish. It seems that the concept of town meeting members having constituents to represent seems to have been lost over the years. We recommend revitalizing and re-emphasizing that concept. Our suggested recommendations, our suggested changes begin here. Danvers currently has 8 precincts with 18 members per precinct, plus the 5 select board members who are at-large town meeting members, for a total of 149 people at town meeting, 149 members at town meeting. Some precincts always have contested races, while others do not have sufficient candidates running to be town meeting members. That is, in many precincts, if there are 6 town meeting member spots up for election, there are often fewer than 6 people running. As a result, these precincts need to hold a caucus before the annual town meeting to try to bring candidates in, sometimes not successfully. Just as an example, the May 6, 2025 town meeting, only 2 of the 8 precincts had more candidates running for town meeting than there were positions available. 6 did not. So 6 of the precincts did not have a sufficient number of people running in order to fill that precinct's allotted number of town meeting members. This suggests to the committee that there's not sufficient interest in or knowledge about the rationale for and the role of town meeting members. So, in an effort to increase engagement and aim for a more complete and competitive elections, and in keeping with the views expressed by people who came and shared their thoughts with our committee, we recommend changing town meeting from 18 members per precinct to 15 members per precinct. The result would be 120 elected town meeting members plus the 5 members of the select board for a total of 125 as voting town meeting members. Now, it's a pretty remarkable thing that here our committee is saying to town meeting, we think you need to vote yourself smaller. That's such an antithetical idea. And it's something that we're concerned about, but just that number of people who are pulling nomination papers shows to us that 18 per precinct just seems not quite attainable, at least not in every precinct. And that is a shame. That means that people living in the various precincts don't have full representative capacity at town meeting. We think a realistic way to resolve that problem is let's carve back. Now, there has been some question about whether that's doable. At our meeting before the select board, town council was present, and she suggested that it is contrary to law, contrary to state law. Now, you know, I did a little bit of research. I'm not in full agreement because the law that she referenced, and that's, I'm not going to hold her to that. She may have other reasons to say that she doesn't think we can do as a vote by the town meeting to reduce its size from 18 to 15 per precinct. The law that she referred to in her remarks on October 21 at the select board meeting was Mass General Laws, Chapter 43A, Section 4, which states that the representative town meeting members shall in each precinct consist of the largest number divisible by 3, which will admit of a representation thereof, meaning of that precinct, in the approximate proportion which the number of inhabitants of that precinct bears to the total number of inhabitants of the town. Now, to me, that goal of making sure that each precinct is equal in size is done when the precincts are drawn up, and that's a function of the town clerk's work based on the 10-year census. So the town clerk came and she spoke with us at length at one meeting about how that process works. So the town clerk's office takes the data from the federal census, looks at the precincts, makes adjustments as needed, and then turns it over to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for review and approval. So just the way our precincts are drawn up, to me, meets that qualification of the statute that I just read to you. That process is what makes the precincts all equal in a relative sense, equal to one another. But the number of representatives from each precinct, to me, is a matter that is, in fact, proper for town meeting to grapple with. And in fact, we have seen numbers go up and down over the years. We've gone, in the period of time that I've been around, we've gone from 12 members per precinct to 15 to 18. Not by vote. That was done, I believe, if I understand properly, through the town clerk's office based on the population per precinct. So I don't think that number is written in stone and can't be modified by us. But you know, I could be wrong. That's up to town council's input. But that's one of our recommendations. And I did listen to what town council had to say to it, and I come up with my response to that as to why I think this is okay to do, but it's certainly not up to me. So that's kind of a hot button issue there. Can we do this change? So that's kind of our biggest proposed change in the Town Meeting Act. A second change we propose is this. Currently, incumbent town meeting members do not have to pull nomination papers and gather 10 signatures to run for another term. So anybody who's stepping in for the first time to be a town meeting member or stepping back to it after being out for a while has to get nomination papers, get at least 10 signatures, and turn it back in within the time frames required. But if you're an incumbent, you don't have to do that. You just have to tell the town clerk's office that, yep, you intend to run again. So we're proposing that all town meeting member candidates have to pull papers and get the 10 signatures. Again, to revitalize the process, to get people thinking again, you're running for town meeting, you are a town meeting member because you're representing the people in your precinct. That's kind of what we keep hammering on. And again, you know, that may be contrary to another section of Mass General Laws, but that's our proposal for now, pending input from town council. We represent inserting language into Section 12 of the Town Manager Act, Town Meeting Act, I'm sorry, to formalize the town moderator's current informational session for town meeting members, to encourage active engagement and to encourage meeting with other town meeting members in their precinct and with the residents of their precinct. So what we're trying to suggest is this theme should be part of the moderator's initial meeting with new town meeting members each year. We feel that the town meeting handbook needs to be updated to include this theme. The town meeting handbook currently is a little out of date in our opinion. We want to emphasize and encourage town meetings that they should meet with other town meeting members in their precinct and with the residents of their precinct. We also suggest that that presentation by the moderator should be available to those who cannot attend because of work schedules or family obligations. That's simple enough. It could just be something that could be watched on DCAT or streamed so it could be observed after the fact. We recommend also that Section 14 of the Act be changed to require that the article should be reviewed, or that the Act, the Town Meeting Act, should be reviewed at least once in every 20 years or sooner if voted by town meeting. So currently it was kind of open-ended, and as I said, it's been a really long stretch of time since it's been reviewed, which actually made it kind of hard to review because language patterns change over a long period of time. A lot of the language in the Town Meeting Act had to do with what you do when you first form a representative town meeting, which we've had now for a very long time, so we don't need that initial language anymore. I should point out that the last sentence of the Act, as recommended by our committee, says that if town meeting votes to review the Act, any such review should be conducted in a manner as determined by town meeting members. Now, at the last select board meeting, there was some question about that language, a statement that it should be in a manner as determined by the select board. And we got into a discussion late at night where I was saying that it's important to our committee that it not be in a manner as determined by the select board, but as determined by town meeting, because town meeting is the legislative branch of our form of government. And if town meeting members feel that the Act needs to be reviewed, they shouldn't have to ask the select board to arrange it. They should be able to say, okay, we're going to do this without having to first come back to the select board for approval. The town meeting is the one that approves a review of the Act. That seemed an important issue that came up that wasn't included in our written report because I didn't realize that was going to be an issue. On pages 5 to 7 of our report, we list other recommendations and ideas, such as having a town-wide forum where precinct members and residents can meet to discuss issues and concerns. We suggest that it take place at Danvers High School, with each precinct having an assigned classroom, and it would be during the first week of February each year. This would encourage a few things. It would encourage town meeting members within a precinct to get to know each other. And as a town meeting member, I can tell you I don't know all the other town meeting members in my precinct. I'm sure that there are other town meeting members who do know everybody from their precinct, but I'm not one of them. Also, it would be a meeting that people who live in the town can come to that forum, meet their precinct, their town meeting members that they've elected, and say to them, you know, I'm really worried about this particular intersection, or I don't understand how you go about having a street light that's flickering taken care of, or I think we need to have electronic voting at town meeting. People should be able to come to a forum and be able to tell their representative town meeting members what's on their mind, what they think needs to happen. And town meeting members need to get to know each other to facilitate those kinds of discussions. So that's, in a nutshell, our biggest proposals for the Town Meeting Act. The Town Manager Act, again, is mostly filled with corrections to the Select Board as opposed to Board of Selectmen, and a broadening of pronouns. But we have kind of three major issues. One is adding the recall election provision, which was based on a citizen petition filed by Mike Traynor. Town Council has recommended that that issue be taken up separately from the Town Meeting Act and Town Manager Act, because she says that's going to need to be part of a home rule petition, as these acts will be as well. So that we've kind of lifted out, but we go into detail in our report and in our language as to what we think the language should be regarding recall election. One thing we grappled with a lot was, should the act say specifically what things can trigger a recall? But the more we tried to do that, the more ensnared we became with our language. So we settled on saying that it's up to the voters, and that it can't be a recall because of the way somebody voted on something. And whether or not a matter is worthy of recall is something that we're suggesting we should leave to the voters. That we say in our proposed language it should be something of substance, something serious, but we didn't want to define in advance what that should be. Another change we're suggesting to the Town Manager Act is changing language to show that the town accountant is appointed by the town manager as opposed to the select board. In our view, what we were doing is making a change that brought the process kind of in sync with what the practice has been for some time. But also, especially with the new town manager stepping in, the town manager is the chief fiscal officer of the town, and the town manager should be able to choose the team of people needed in order to successfully operate as a chief financial officer, to have consistency up and down the chain, to have everybody pulling in the same direction and at the same time. So the town accountant is one of several roles that would fit within that. There's the finance director. I'm trying to think of the names of other positions that fill in there. But we felt town accountant should be appointed by the town manager. I can tell you there was some pushback from the select board on that question. I don't know where they'll land on that. But our recommendation is to show the town accountant is appointed by the town manager. And one of the reasons for the Strong Manager Act was, back in the day, the select board would have to do things like, hire the police chief, hire a building inspector, hire the keeper of weights and measures. And the select board are citizens of the town, all working and raising families and doing whatever it is you do during the day. And I think it's not a lot, it's too much to ask that select board do all of that administrative work too. Hiring and firing and all that kind of stuff. So the Strong Town Manager Act has been a boon, in my opinion, to the town because it allows for a professional town manager to come in and make those decisions, do screening applicants, determining what types of services the town should be offering and how to do it. And the town manager is answerable to the select board. So if the select board is not pleased with something that's happening, the select board can take action, including if they're not pleased with who the town accountant is. I also feel that a person who is eligible to be hired as a town accountant, that their professional credentials would require them to report irrespective of chain of command if they felt something untoward was happening, something inappropriate was happening. So that was one of the things the select board was saying, that they felt the town accountant needed to be able to report to them directly in case there was something shady going on. But I feel a town accountant would already have to do that anyway. I'm not as concerned about that. I'm more concerned with having the town manager have all the tools at hand to do the job we need town manager to do. And finally, the other major issue we suggested for the Town Manager Act is eliminating the residence requirement for town manager. Now that was a kind of a hot issue when our committee was first formed, because the town had just begun the process of looking for a town manager. Now it's a calmer period of time in which to consider the issue. Our committee, we had lots of different opinions. We were kind of all over the place on it, but we came to the conclusion that the town unnecessarily limits itself to choice of candidates if there's a residency requirement. And that currently, with our world of internet and instant communications, a town manager can be anywhere and be effective in doing his or her job here. Emergency response matters. We have a fire department, we have a police department. They're a part of regional agreements. There's no doubt there'd be plenty of presence in an emergency situation. So we felt, in recognition of the professionalism of that job, that it was appropriate and in fact good for the town, better for the town, to eliminate a residency requirement. Page 8 of our report talks a lot about the recall election provision. And page 9 talks about the town accountant discussion. And page 10, the residency requirement. The committee is also recommending language kind of in both acts, which encourage town meeting members to come to finance committee meetings. I hope you don't mind that we did that. But your committee is recognized as like the engine for town meeting. And if town meeting members want to have a true understanding of what their job is going to be at the annual town meeting, they need to understand what your committee is doing. So one of the things we've sprinkled throughout is to encourage town meeting members to come to finance committee meetings, or at least watch them. We also have language which provides for and encourages specific communication between the town manager and the select board. Stuff like a report should be made, at least monthly on major items. The town manager has the authority under the Town Manager Act currently to rearrange departments and change how services are provided, et cetera. And we just added language saying that the town manager shall advise the select board when such changes have been made. Stuff like that. Again, in response to of concerns that people brought to us during our committee meetings. The committee recommends language which requires the Town Manager Act to be reviewed at least once every 20 years or sooner as determined by a town meeting. And again, I have that same comment about how the language we provide or we're recommending says that it's at the to be done in accordance with the town as town meeting decides. And again, I think the other night the select board wasn't they weren't sure of that language themselves. They seemed to think that they should be the ones that would then get the process going. Also, in our report, we included towards the end the fact that the committee spent a significant time, especially in our first 3 or 4 public meetings, discussing the Danvers form of government, kind of in broad terms, questioning whether or not representative town meeting and strong town manager form of government is best for the town. After reaching out to the moderator for clarification, we confirmed that our mandate, as voted by town meeting, was to review Town Meeting Act and Town Manager Act. If town meeting determines or deems that it's necessary to consider other forms of government, such as a city form of government or a town form of government with a town meeting or not a town meeting, there's so many different formats. If that's what town meeting deems is necessary for the town of Danvers, our recommendation is that a separate committee should be formed to study that question in more depth. There would be a lot more involved in it than just looking at the 2 acts which currently exist. And I think it would require a lot longer and attention to both historic issues and also understanding with more clarity what the different forms would be and what that would look like. So that kind of in a nutshell is what we're here for, to share this stuff with you. And we're so delighted to have a chance to do that with you now as the select board is kind of considering what their final take is going to be on it. So it's lovely to have a chance to tell you where we came from, what we think, and open to any questions you might have.
Well, thank you. That was an outstanding presentation, and we're just delighted to have you back with us, Sally.
Yeah.
But I think we probably all have some questions. Maybe if we start with the Town Meeting Act and kind of limit our scope in, a kind of a first set of questions or thoughts that we as committee members might have for you. Just a reminder, this is a public meeting. It's not a public hearing. There'll be no votes taken tonight. This is really an informational session for us to better understand your work. And so with that, Arthur, do you have any thoughts or questions about anything particular to the Town Meeting Act?
Always have thoughts. However, I think that this is, first of all, thank you, Sally and committee, for all the work that you did over the past year. Obviously, put a ton of time into it, and, you know, I think most of what you've said, it sounds reasonable. I don't know this for sure, but I remember when we went from 15 to 18, and because I'm a nerd lawyer, I remember looking at the statute, and I remember thinking that we had to go from 15 to 18 based upon the numbers, the population. So I didn't hear what the town council said, but that may be correct. I'm not sure.
And I'm no kind of expert on it. I focus more on the fact that the precincts have to be divisible and relative in size to one another. I didn't see that the numbers of town meeting members had to, but I could be missing it. You know, I'm not an expert in that field at all.
I mean, it was a while ago, so I'm not as sharp as I used to be. So let me just ask a couple questions. So as far as the reduction, I think, I could be wrong, but I think that we're usually pretty filled out by the time we have town meeting. So I think that we caucus in who we need to get caucused in, and I think we pretty much always have a full contingent. So does it make sense to have less if we want more people involved? That's kind of where I'm wondering. And again, at this point, I'm just wondering, you know.
It does seem contradictory to say we want to increase participation and encourage people to be actively involved, and then say, oh, but we want to reduce town meeting. It does seem contradictory. I understand that, and it's a big leap. But the reason we came to it, again, is just what happened in that May 2025 town meeting. And it's not the first time that it's happened, that there's not enough people running for the number of seats. But also because we felt that by becoming a smaller group, we might be able to encourage everybody to be, you know, actively involved and prepared for every meeting. And we're trying to put a real positive spin on.
It's hopeful.
Yeah.
There's always a desire to have more involvement and people more interested, and I think in the end, people are going to be interested or not interested, and you know, I don't think you can make people do it. But and the other so this is like I'm thinking. The other thing is you want to have the incumbents get the 10 signatures. So I have no problem with that. I mean, I think it's not a big ask. But on the other hand, I can see people that would say, I'm not going to get the signatures, and then you'll have even less people involved again. So I mean, I know of a couple of people that told me they only kept doing it because they didn't have to get signatures again. It's 10 signatures. It's not hard, but you know, you'll again have less people. So and there are people that don't want to have any contest. Like if they see this is going to be a contest, they're not going to do it because they don't want to lose. So that's people think that way. So, but I don't know. I mean, I tend to think that in the end, I'm going to defer to the work that you did. So, but those are the questions that I had at this point.
Thank you.
Mary, do you have anything?
No questions, since I served on the committee, and I stand behind the report that the committee has submitted to the town. And, you know, we worked long and hard on it, and so I support the report as presented. Thank you.
Paul?
Thank you, Sally, and the committee for the work you did. Arthur sort of touched on some of the things that I was concerned about, mainly reducing the number. And I guess whether Mass General Law will cover that and decide is probably up to Mass General Law. And we won't have a final say one way or the other if we try to do something the state won't let us do.
Right.
I'm not torn about getting 10 signatures. I don't think that, to me, I ran one time, twice maybe, and all you have to do is walk around your neighborhood and or have a big family. And if you got 10 signatures right there.
That's all you have to do. I mean,
That's
I
all-
said
that's right.
it's not a big
So,
ask.
I mean, to
I'm
me,
just-
it's, if you can't compete for that position, then I don't think you really want it bad enough. And period, to me, so I wouldn't be opposed to going out and have everyone get 10 signatures. The only thing I had, and I may have missed it in here, and maybe I'm ahead of myself. When you elect town meeting, some have 3, 2, and 1 year terms. Is that all by voting? Okay, all right.
Well, of course, it began with the very first representative town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So at that very first time, they had to be designated 3-year, 2-year, 1 year.
Yeah, okay.
Now, the group per precinct, you're supposed to be voted in as a 3-year term.
Right.
But only a third of the members are voted each year. But if somebody steps off, somebody has moved out of town or has, decided to step away from town meeting, if their position is being filled, it'll say right on the ballot and on the nomination papers that the person who's running is running for a 1-year term or for a 2-year term. So it's not, I don't know if I've really answered your question.
No, I understand that. And I would assume that if someone has to leave for a reason or is moving out of town and has 2 years left on their term, now, does that person come in at your caucus and inherit 2 more years? Or is it just until the next election that the term would be filled? That's a question for anybody. I don't even know, I can't remember, so I didn't leave office with any time left.
I'm pretty sure, I think you had 2 questions in there. The first one I think you were dealing with was the fact that every 10 years, when we redo the census and they redo the precincts, we have an election in which everybody has to run for, everyone runs. And they'll elect, for example, in this case, 18 members. And the 6 highest vote getters get 3 years, the next 6 get 2, and then 1. So that's one thing. In regards to the caucusing, my recollection is that the caucusing, you come in for the remainder of that year. And then you would run for reelection for whatever was remaining.
So you wouldn't, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of times, and generally what will happen is that those people will leave in a situation when there is no necessity to fill that by caucus. And in that situation, that's why you oftentimes will see the regular election, and then you might have an election for a 2-year and an election for a 1-year. And those ones are always people who have left. In addition to that, if you move within Danvers from outside of your precinct, you can continue that year, but you cannot until the next election. If you move out of town, that seat becomes full, and that one again would be filled, or if you resign for whatever reason.
Right. Okay, I'm all set for now.
Ted?
I think clearly I understand the idea behind the reducing the size and making it more competitive. But just to go back, I kind of struggle with the idea of how the first recommendation and the second recommendation pursue the same end and don't kind of conflict with each other.
This is for the Town
Yeah.
Meeting Act?
Like, so in one hand, we're trying to, basically have races where there's more people running than there are seats, essentially, have competitive races. And then the second one, we're basically making it more difficult for people to run. I know, I totally understand 10 signatures is not a lot. But I also, having been at many town meetings now, it's not the most glorious job. Usually there's a couple things.
Oh, Ted, it is.
Usually there's maybe 1 to 3 things that are are in doubt, for lack of a better word. And, I could see folks, potentially some folks that have been on town meeting a long time and showed up to every single one who are just older and, don't have the energy to do it, but actually are very good and useful town meeting members, not putting the papers in. So I guess how did you guys think about that, I guess is my
Well, it's a really good question, and our intent was to try to make it all more competitive. We actually talked at one point about increasing the number of signatures required on nomination papers for town meeting, because 20 seemed pretty paltry when you think of the population.
Right.
But our goal wasn't to make it harder to run, but to encourage more active participation. And to say to somebody, look, to run the first time, you had to get 10 signatures. And as those who have spoken so far have indicated, 10, it's not a heavy lift, it's not that hard. And so to ask incumbents to get it too, again, it's just to kind of give a seal of excellence. I mean, I'm trying to really stay away from that word actually, but that town meeting members they're important, the job they do is important. They've taken on something that is worthy of, admiration or honor or whatever by the town. Just to try to fill in that picture, though I could see somebody looking at that and saying, well, this contradicts. There is that razor's edge that you could follow. We tried. My goal personally is I don't want to cast a negative light at all. I'm trying to encourage people to take on this role of town meeting member in its true and full meaning.
I think, if I might just jump in here, because you said, this is kind of where I've been struggling, and you've said both things now. We want to increase engagement, and you just said the words that I'm most afraid of, is we want to make it more competitive. And to me, when I think about town meeting and the way we behave at town meeting and the way town meeting operates, it's a very non-competitive space, and it's a very non-competitive ideal, I think. It is a representative body of the people of the town coming together with the town's best interests in their heart. And I worry that, and obviously your recommendation is to decrease it by a relatively small amount. If you were asking to decrease it dramatically, I would be terrified and say, the worst thing we could do is create a body of 60 people, with the intention of the best and the brightest getting elected, right? But, A, that might not happen. Look at Congress, and
Well, that's not. Go ahead.
I think that in most instances, it should be relatively easy to become a town meeting member. In some regard, I think we should probably have 200 town meeting members. If we want to increase democracy and increase participation, well, let's increase the number. That's just a thought. But I can't help but think that the word competition. I don't think it is an election, yes, but I don't know that it should be a competitive election, and I think that would be possibly the worst thing that could happen to the community.
I can understand that point, and when I use the word competitive, what I mean is in this context where we have, let's say, 8 positions per annual election, and then we don't have 8 people running. To me, that's not a competitive process because we don't have enough people running. So to me, the word competitive in this context means encouraging at least 8 people, and maybe it'd be really nice if it was 9 or 10 to run from each precinct. So I'm using competitive in that way, and I don't want to give any kind of impression that we're looking for best and brightest, because we're talking about people who live in the town and, as you say, care about the town and about their neighbors. There's so many ways to measure somebody in that capacity, right. Caring and understanding and wanting to know and wanting to help. And I regret having used the word excellence a minute ago, because it's not like some artificial, who went to college and where did they go and all that kind of stuff. That's not the type of engagement that I mean when I'm talking about engagement. I'm talking about somebody who's engaged in their community, who understands why it's important to look at each item of the budget every year, who understands a little bit historically, not necessarily. I mean, I moved into town, I didn't know much. I still feel like there's an awful lot that I don't know, but people who look around town, take in what's happening, and want to help make things better.
Thank you, that's helpful to me. I appreciate that. Ted, did you have anything else?
Yeah, did you guys talk about attendance at all? Like town meeting attendance?
Not that I can recall specifically. Is there something that you're?
Well, just, I mean, if the goal, I don't know, with the whole, like, having incumbents pass paper, like, get their signatures again, you know, one of the things I've always wanted to know is, you know, do you show up to the town meeting? I think is probably the first criteria to measure the effectiveness of a town meeting member. And I'm not sure that, you know, I think typically we're between, I don't know, between 150 and 120 people at the town meetings, and there's 150, you know, 145 to 150 that are members. I don't know, I was just wondering if there's, like, if you have perfect attendance, maybe you don't have to get 10 signatures. Because it's really only, I don't know, 4 or 5 meetings over the course of 3 years you have to get to. And also, I think it would help inform people about who's actually going and representing them and actually participating.
Interesting. Thank you. I don't recall that we actually specifically talked about it, but one of the notes I've made for myself is to see if I can talk with the town clerk about not just the number of attendees at each of the last several town meetings, because somebody might have been sick, somebody might have been out of town, there might be some reason they couldn't attend. So that's kind of one data point that might be helpful or interesting. But the other would be, how many times did we not have a full complement elected? Not did they attend or not, but did each precinct have its full representation in place?
And the other question, if the reduction in the size went through, how would it be enacted? Would it be like, essentially, like what you said, everybody
It would have to be.
everybody would go on the ballot?
But I think that's also part of the problem with the way it's been presented in this case, is that isn't particularly clear. And, I mean, since I guess it's my,
It's your turn, yeah.
yeah, I could definitely, you know, I think if we have a town council opinion that indicates that the town council indicates, again, that this is violative of that other statute, we're both lawyers.
That's the answer. That's the end of it,
answer.
right?
And I think that I wasn't looking at the football game, I was looking at that statute.
It's because it hasn't started yet.
Yeah, but just looking at it quickly, I think she's right. So, again, I'm not the town council, so that's her opinion. But I think that's a substantial problem with it just getting off with. In regards to the issue of the 20-year mandatory how do you think, how can town meeting initiate anything?
By vote.
How do they get a vote?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, it may be semantic.
Well, see, I think, Sally, it's not semantic. The process requires the town meeting doesn't initiate anything. They finalize everything. The process that we have requires, in essence, either a citizen's petition to come through or for the select board to bring it through the process that we have. And I don't disagree with you about the fact that ultimately, as it would be, town meeting will ultimately make the decision as to whether or not that is there. But it's impractical and in fact impossible for town meeting to initiate legislation. They don't have that capacity within the system. And I think that's something that we have to look at in regards to some of these things. I'm I'm also, just me personally, I really appreciate the effort that your group put into this, because I know there was a tremendous amount of work. And I appreciate the aspirational components of this, but I'm going to tell you, you don't put aspirations in statutes. And if you put aspirations in statutes, you're going to find yourself in a big problem down the line when those statutes need to be interpreted. And so, for example, anything that's in here that encourages something, you don't encourage with statutes. You either tell people to do something or you don't do it. And that's how statutory construction works, and that's where this is going to be. And that doesn't mean that we don't want these things, but they don't belong in a statute, from my estimation. And I think I speak with some
Gravitas.
on that, and from understanding how that works. And there are other ways in regards to getting people active and involved. Again, I was with you in 1984 when I first got elected to the town meeting. There were 12 people in there, 4 people running. The story is that Jim Donovan went to my father, because my father was a union guy for the police, asked him to run because the union wanted union people to run for town meeting positions. My father wanted no part of it, and he said, but my kid is a political science major, what about him? And poor Jim was left with, he didn't want snotty-nosed landers, he wanted old man landers. And, but that was the way people got involved at that point, was there were groups that encouraged people to run. And that's how you get, unfortunately, it has to be organic. And I'd love that we could create a statute that gets that type of involvement. I wish we could legislate attendance. I wish we could legislate people paying any attention. Truth be told, though, there were fewer members when I was there in '84, but there were probably just as high a percentage of people who were opening up their warrant for the first time when that was at that meeting. It's not something that's different. So, I applaud what the try to do here is, but I'm just not sure that we can legislate some of those things in this situation.
Wally?
I think we've touched on about everything except for, I love the fact of, the incumbents needing signatures to hit the ballot. I would go for 20 signatures, for no other reason. It gets you out in your community. And when we look at it from a constituent standpoint, you're at least meeting your neighbor and know what their opinion is. So I would be all for, more
Thank you.
interaction.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a representative form of town government, and from somebody whose family members were longtime town meeting members and never had to go get a signature.
So here's a question. In my mind, as I'm listening to each of you with your input, and you don't have to answer this, just more to think about. Do you think representative town meeting form of government still works in the town of Danvers? I mean, it's only been here, what did I say, 1930? And I've thought a lot about that when they first did that. What was the town like before when it was open town meeting? Because you hear about stories about a few communities around that still have open town meetings, and one of the big problems is getting a quorum, is what I've been told, and from my research. So the Town Meeting Act was adopted in 1930. And then in 1949, just a few years after World War II, Strong Town Manager Act was adopted. And I think a lot about that time, too. I mean, what were the forces or the issues or the thoughts and concerns that led to those two huge changes in how town government works? And it's one of the reasons, I mean, that was one of many things that we discussed, especially in our first handful of meetings. What form of government is the appropriate and best one for the town of Danvers? I've come back throughout this process over and over to feeling that no town meeting and strong town manager form of government really work great. The town is very well run. Things work really well. And it's hard when you're digging into these old acts. It almost sometimes feels like you're looking for the negative. We've steadfastly avoided being negative, but the process kind of triggers it. You look at, well, what's wrong? This isn't quite right. Let's suggest changing it. It's interesting to think about this process if you begin, or somewhere along the way, think to yourself, is this really the right way for the town to run? I would say, especially after this work we've done, that I still feel that it is the best form of government, and the town of Danvers operates beautifully under it.
Yeah.
Oh, except for, no, I'm just kidding.
That's a big discussion.
And does anyone else have any follow-up questions on the Town Meeting Act? Paul, you look like you're ready to pounce.
No, I totally agree with Sally on the way that the town is run. I mean, when I came in here, when my family moved here in 1981, and we were looking for every other place to go. And we had relatives here, and I talked to the relatives, and they said, this is a very well-run town, very well-run. And I've experienced that. I come from a background where my father was involved with town politics back in Connecticut, and they had open meeting. And every uncle, brother, cousin, and everybody would call to storm the castle and go down and defeat something that the town really needed. So I've seen what happens when you plan as a town and you're really ready to go and you're about 95% of the work is done, and then they have an open town meeting and it's voted down. And everybody's left there. They may have had 50 meetings and big turnouts and all the positive things, but yet it gets to town meeting and, 10 years later, maybe you get it, or 20 years later. So I'm for an elected town meeting, period. I'm not going to change my mind.
If that's how it is, then we can all go home.
Yes.
Go Pats. Thanks, Paul. All right, with that, we can probably move on to the Town Manager Act. And we'll start down here with Wally.
Where are we at?
Town Manager Act.
So I'm all in for it. I think I'll let Mr. Langley start.
So Sally, when it comes to the communication part, when does the town manager have to communicate this information to the select board?
Well, I don't know if I know the answer to that in terms of currently. I just know that, and committee members that are here, let me know if I'm misdescribing this, that some people seem to feel or complain that there were times when the town managers in the past would do something and the select board didn't know about it. And so with that, we decided here and there to sprinkle in language that says town manager will submit a report or keep the select board informed of something. We tried to be light in our touch and to try not to put any onerous additions to what already is a difficult task. Let me see if I can find one that I'm thinking of in particular.
Page 15 of the Town Manager Act, 14 of the Town Manager Act.
Thank you. Thank you, CR. So we've renumbered it now to section 14 of the Town Manager Act. Begins at page 13 of the redlined version, and it says, that the town manager has general powers and duties such as supervising and directing the administration of all departments, commissions, boards, etc. And at the top of page 14, that the town manager, in accordance with the provisions of the act, can consolidate offices, etc., and transfer duties, powers, and appropriation of one department to another. And then we've added a sentence that the town manager shall notify the select board of such change. not suggesting town manager has to get their approval in advance, but has to notify them.
Yeah, I'm going to sound a little flip, and I apologize for this, but that's sort of what I'm getting at. When does it have to happen?
I don't know currently.
And that's the
'cause-
problem, Sally.
That's
Because
right.
we have to know when it has to happen, because if I would interpret that and read that to mean that that would come after, it would be, which is fine by me. I would say that, I think me personally, and I don't want to speak for anyone else here, but me personally would look at this, if it was something other than that, if the intent is that the town manager has to, in essence, give that notification before that happening, in essence, what we'd be doing in that situation is making the town manager get the authorization of the select board.
I understand what you mean, but by saying here that the manager shall notify the board, does not include language that the town manager has to obtain the approval of the board, just has to notify them.
I understand, but what I'm saying is that language if the intent is, which is what I would be perfectly fine with, that the town manager needs to provide that notification after having done it, as a communication standpoint only, that's fine, but that's not what this says.
Sally, I think when we discussed that section, I think we talked around when. Like, was it within 2 weeks? Was it within so many days of an action or something? So I think there was discussion on that from my recall, but I don't think we could determine, like, what made the most sense.
And I think it is supposed to be after, it is not required before.
I understand all that, and I'm not trying to be a you-know-what. I know I am being one, but,
No,
At the next select board meeting.
the reality of it is that if we're gonna put this in legislation, it can't be questionable. And I'm, again, not for nothing, your intent is not gonna matter to a judge if they're interpreting this. So we gotta make sure that the language that's in this is going to be able to hold up. And again, if in me personally, I'd want that notification to be after whatever happens. I don't want the town manager to have to do that prior to taking the action.
So if it just said such changes, or like, would you just say?
Well, I would probably,
after?
I would say the town manager shall notify the select board of such change within 30 days of making said change.
But that also doesn't suggest that it has to be before, 30 days before.
Within 30 days of making such change.
Or even within 30 days after, just to make it clear. But I could say, I feel pretty confident, and again, please let me know if I'm capturing this wrong. The committee's feeling was that it would be not mandating the town manager to get approval in advance, but to notify after the fact. That was, in fact, our intent, and if you feel that it's not clear enough, we would agree with adding language to make it more clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's some of these things that again, I'm not trying to nitpick away at the intent, but I think we both know, again, a judge interpreting this is not going to care what your intent was. And he's going to read it on the plane, which may or may not mean that it had, I don't know what a judge is going to interpret, and I don't want to leave it up to a judge in a court case. And so I think in this particular situation especially, I think that makes, it would make sense. If that's what the intent is, I think that would make sense in that regard. And I don't know where the select board wants to be with that, but I do think that that's there with it.
There are two other places that I quickly, that included such language, is at the top of page 16 of the red line version of the Town Manager Act, which says the town manager shall keep full and complete records of the office of town manager and shall render as often as may be required by the select board, and then we put in at least monthly a report of operations during the period reported upon. And another place that we added a little language about communication was the bottom of page 17,
Okay, the litigation.
about litigation, that the town manager should keep the select board informed regarding any such litigation. So those, again, it's open-ended language. Our intent was kind of multiple
Yep.
prongs. One was not to overburden town manager with additional reports and requirements, but to satisfy the citizens of the town and the select board and town meeting members that there is an active flow of information back and forth between the town manager and the select board.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. I'm not doubting that. I just want to make sure that the language is clear and as we move forward with it. In regards to the, trying to keep where I made notes. Again, I think the section 36, again, I think we once again have a similar problem with that in the respect that the town meeting just doesn't have the ability to initiate anything. So even though they'd have the ability to finalize it, certainly, obviously, my attention immediately went in both the Town Manager Act and the Town Meeting Act to the sections that dealt with the Finance Committee. Again, this is just going to be me, but language like town meeting members and residents are encouraged to go to a meeting, they don't belong in a statute. It's very nice. I wish they would. I also wish that they'd mow their lawns and clean their cars and do a lot of things. But again, I'm just, this is me, putting encouragement language, as nice as it might make us feel, does absolutely nothing.
It engenders discussion. That was one
Yeah,
major
well,
part
which is great.
part of what we're trying.
But
There was some discussion, as you all probably know, Finance Committee appears in a significant way in both the Town Meeting Act and the Town Manager Act, which I personally think is perfectly appropriate. There was some discussion, just to let you know, at the Select Board meeting about whether it really needed to be in both. I stood up and said, of course it does.
yeah.
But I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. I've thought that myself at times, but we're so important that we need to appear twice, right? That's why,
Agreed.
so,
It's just like New York, New York.
that's right. And then, very small one, but on the bond, why did you want to change it from being automatic to the select board had to require it?
Because I don't think it's ever been done. I mean, I've asked people, there was bond language in a few positions, and
Yeah,
apparently it hasn't been done in ages. I couldn't tell you how long ago, but I asked a little bit about that, probably through the town clerk. I don't really remember now. And that, no, they don't have bonds for these
yeah,
positions.
I
What
don't-
is
I
it?
think Wayne was the last one to have one when he first started.
Town manager and maybe town accountant? I forget. It might just be town manager, but
They, I'm not going to, the town accountant one, I think Wally will probably maybe talk a little bit about that. And I know that the select board has some issues in regards to the potential. Again, I'll say this, that it was always interesting to me when I was on the select board, because my father was at that time was the police chief, I could not do Wayne's review, because obviously Wayne was my father's boss and it was an impropriety. So I always did the town accountant's review, and I always had to do it with Mark, because no one wanted Mark to be on the town manager's review at that time.
Mark who?
Zubrick. And so, I would always have to spend at least 3 nights with the town accountant, with Lenny and Mark, going through all of that. Personally, I like the check and balance of it. It's not a hill that I'm particularly interested in dying on, but I would say that I think that there's some value in the select board maintaining their control over the town accountant. And I'm thrilled that you have a belief that the town accountant would absolutely tattle on the town manager if there was impropriety, regardless of that, but.
Town council was not convinced.
Yeah,
Just so you know, she didn't,
She didn't, but she wasn't with you on that one either? No. Thanks, Mr. Chair. And thank you to your group. I know, again, I really appreciate the amount of effort that went into this.
Well, you know, there's six of the 10 of us are here tonight. Just so you know,
Were they all encouraged?
they were all encouraged. But I just think it's remarkable, so long after the fact, and after all the meetings and all the hours that we put in, that, you know, such a large percentage of the committee has been coming to me. The people that couldn't come for particular reasons. So it's a remarkable group.
I will, and just to send a shot across people's bow before we get to it, I think if we want to combine the debate that will come at some point over clickers and the difference between a representative town meeting and the open town meeting, when we deal with clickers on a representative town meeting, I can assure you that those clickers better be of a type that I know how every one of those town meeting members voted and it appears someplace. However, with the representative town meeting, those clickers should probably be anonymous. And they oftentimes are, or have to be, because there's just too many of them in open town meeting. So I think that shows, and I really believe in that idea that we want the accountability of people who represent the, you know, in whatever it is. I'm not a person who believes that you have to do what your constituents tell you. I think that you stand up for your own beliefs on it. That's why you get elected. But if the constituents should know how you voted and then maybe vote you out if they have a problem with it, so.
Can we not talk about stuff that's not on the
Yeah.
agenda?
Yeah, that was going to be my comment.
Right.
Ted?
Can I just ask a mechanic question? How is this supposed to be presented and voted on at the meeting?
At the town meeting?
Yeah.
I think to be determined, right?
Happy to speak to it.
Please,
Mr.
yeah.
Chair. Good evening. And I should start by saying, I'm pretty sure it was Ann Freitas who made sure you all had your reports and not me, but thank you. Ann deserves that acknowledgement. So the schedule so far, so we've been discussing this a lot. I think people have been following the select board know. They have done their review, their initial review of both documents. We will have to them in the next meeting, next two meetings, their version, the select board version, which is eventually what you all will see. And we're talking about the difference between multiple articles per act or just one. And I think the consensus so far is that there would be a housekeeping article. We've discussed how to group the other changes, whether they're considered kind of major substantive changes. So I'm guessing you will see 3 to 5 articles on each one of these acts to vote on. So you can kind of take the non-substantive and the substantive. And then the kind of remaining question I have for council is, do you have to take a final vote? I come from a legislative background, so to me, we would put it forward as one bill, but I think that town meeting and select board are looking for a few articles. And then the question is, do you have to vote on one? So I'm guessing you'll see 3 to 5 articles on each one of these acts. And their public hearing, the warrant should be proposed. That's the public hearing. So yep, so we're going to hopefully have proposed warrant articles to the select board by December 2nd, public hearing on December 16th, then to you all, hopefully for a meeting in early to mid-January with the February town meeting.
And then moving to the recommendations, you said the recall, they might try and deal with separately, the recall provision?
Yeah.
So at the advice of council, because there is a separate home rule petition that would have to go through, the select board will be discussing the recall provision at their meeting on Monday, November 17th. It's changed from Tuesday, so just so everybody knows, Monday is this next select board meeting. So that would be its own separate warrant article if the board chooses to propose it.
So I'm just trying to, so I think we've had 2 warrant articles. It's been presented as a warrant article twice. Was it the first time it was very close? Some may have judged, or is the second? And then we voted to table it. So now and refer it to the committee, and now we're saying we're unreferring it to the committee and it has to get voted on?
So
as
town
an article
council
again?
indicated that it would be more appropriate as its own separate warrant article, and
And the select board is starting from the proposal
Yeah.
that came from the committee.
Right.
that's how we'll see it. Not incorporated into the two acts, but as its own separate article.
Article.
So from a legislative standpoint, what we would anticipate is an amendment in a whole paper of both of the two, regardless of how we get to that point, but we would be looking to basically substitute the two existing statutes with new statutes in regards to the Town Meeting Act and the Town Manager Act, and we would have a third home rule petition, which would deal specifically with recall in Danvers.
Correct.
Okay.
And would that third article have the recommendation of the committee with it? I'm just asking, because one of the things I don't like to do is waste people's time. And like you guys put a lot of time into this, it's quite clear. And, I know Mike has put a lot of effort into that recall, but certainly more energy than I ever would have devoted to that cause. I know, like, he's been before us twice with petitions. He clearly spent some time with you guys. I don't want to just, give that effort a runaround. If we referred it to a committee, I kind of want to make sure it gets its day in court, so to speak. And just keep referring and then unreferring, it seems to me like we're not really doing that. And I don't know who to address that comment to.
Yeah, and the chairwoman can speak to it, but I think that is the intention. They're starting with the language that is submitted by the review committee. And from the discussion last week, and if you want to address it, I think the select board hears you.
Okay.
Maureen, do you have anything?
No.
Okay, great.
Did you guys talk at all with respect to the residency requirement for the town manager? Did you ever talk about having a distance requirement?
We talked about that. We talked about contiguous communities. We talked about only the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We talked about lots of ideas and ultimately came to the conclusion that the best result was to just eliminate it. Not because the others were too confusing, but because each way we thought of to draw the lines kind of just didn't make sense.
Couldn't you just have a mileage?
You could. We
Sure.
talked about putting a 10-mile or a 50-mile or 250-mile. We talked about it. We talked about that was one of our longest discussions. There were a handful of issues that we spent a lot of time on. Recall was one, but so was the residency requirement. And we considered and talked about, should we make it a 50-mile, a 100-mile requirement? And none of them really made sense when we thought about the function, the responsibilities, the role of the town manager. Those things didn't really matter in terms of what we need and want a town manager to do. They don't have to be living within the town, within 10 miles of the town, within 20 miles of the town.
No, I don't think you have to be. I see the reason that the primary argument of not having residency as a requirement, in that we're restricting ourselves to a smaller potential pool of applicants. But I also see the argument for having people being as involved in the town as possible when they're running it. If somebody's super commuting from the South Shore or from Worcester, just like I've had to do long commutes in my life. I can tell you, you're not as involved. You're exhausted, and you're pretty much working business hours as max, and heading home. And people if you live in Peabody or you live in Amesbury and you work and you're the town manager, I don't have a problem with that. But if you live in Duxbury, I have a problem with that. I don't think that's a compatible location for somebody that wants to be the manager of a town and understand, hey, somebody's complaining about this intersection. No, you can't just log on to your computer an hour away and address that. That's actually something that you have to go and look at an intersection and maybe have driven through it yourself.
Well,
and realize what people are talking about.
Sure, and maybe to flip that concept a bit, the town manager is hired by the select board, and one of the requirements of the job is to be very involved with and knowledgeable about the town. If a town manager, no matter how far away they live, or even if they live in town, if they're not attentive to needs like that, then they're not doing their job. And if they're not doing their job, it's not necessarily linked to how many miles they are away. It's linked to whether they're performing the functions that are set out, the requirements for the job. So we felt that was a much better way to measure a town manager's performance than an artificial where you have to live. John Jaworski has something he'd like to add to.
Remember one item that came up in relationship to that, that's the board of selectmen. If they consider that criteria miles, for whatever reason they do, that's what they will consider. So I think our idea was that's their responsibility to make that decision. We didn't feel that we need to put that restriction on it.
Yeah, that was always my view of it, was that by having that, you're actually tying the select board's hands much more so than they are by basically removing it. And now the select board has flexibility both in regards to their hiring and also perhaps more in regards to their supervision of that manager by having that piece removed.
Excuse me, Mike Matvichuk is a member of a committee.
Another way of looking at this, and one that I proposed in one of our meetings, is that if you have a residency requirement, then in the eyes of the voters, certainly in my eyes, that person is going to be more in tune with the tax rate, the quality of the schools, the quality of your services, all of that stuff. But once you remove the residency requirement, that person becomes far more diluted in the eyes of the citizens as to their involvement in the town. He could be living in the first house on Sylvan Street in Peabody. And he's, stone's throw, he can walk to town hall, but he lives in Peabody. And he doesn't have the best interest in the tax rate, in the schools, and the services. So I think in that regard, taking the residency requirement out, once you do that, then you remove all of that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I disagree or agree that somebody that lives in the first house across the Middleton town line is as ineffective as somebody that lives an hour away. But what you're basically arguing is that we can filter this in an interview process. I've been through interview processes to hire senior employees in the town, and those interview processes are usually quite structured. Are you even legally able to ask somebody if they will move closer to Danvers as part of an interview? And
This question actually came up, I think, at the last select board meeting, and town council answered. I mean, I'm not comfortable with the concept that you take away a residency requirement, but you have one anyway behind the curtain.
but it's not. I mean,
But that's what seems to be suggested. Could the select board just kind of have one, just not have it be in the act?
but by not having it at all, you've left that a select board member could decide that in an interview process that they are voting for a certain candidate because they live in Danvers and the other ones don't. So by putting effectively a select board member has that power now. Whether it's written that there's a residency requirement or not.
Well, they could choose to,
Right, yeah, like.
anything, they can
Yes.
pick anything, this candidate has red hair, so I'm going to vote for them.
No,
Well, that should be the way it works, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not sure where I shake out on that. I don't know that just taking it all together.
I just
Given
don't,
what I know about how civil interview processes work, I just don't know that it's as simple as, the select board can conveniently, work that out if there's a candidate that lives 90 minutes away that they really like. I just don't know how practical that is.
well, just for the record, I don't want to make it seem that we're suggesting a wink and a nod, take the residency requirement out because the select board will impose one. It's like you wouldn't want to say, we're an equal employment opportunity employer, but the select board could choose somebody or could decide not to hire someone because of their race, creed, color, nationality. I I don't want to be party to something like that. I think the select board has, once they've hired somebody, and even in the hiring process, they're the hiring authority. And if they're not satisfied that a town manager, whether he or she lives in Danvers or not, they're not as involved as they need to be in the town. They don't know what's going on. They don't know the trouble intersections. They don't know where the trees are an issue. They don't know the impact of the tax rate or the quality of the schools. If the select board feels that about a person that's a town manager, they have the authority and the obligation to deal with it. To me, that doesn't mean they can underhand under the table have a card up their sleeve about residency or not, or race or not, or religion or not. They have to, there's kind of an underbelly to the argument that I want to step away from. What I'm trying to say is that people can be very effective without having to live in the town. For instance, one memory that's seared for me and for many other people who have lived in the town during the years I have, that when we had that explosion on Thanksgiving Eve down in the port area, it was beyond the port, but people remember Wayne Marquis being there in the middle of the night. He got there. He was helping put locks on doors and having a log of which key goes to which lock to which address, and he was very actively involved. A town manager can live in another community and be here for something like that if need be, or can make sure that there's somebody in the town who is covering that, like a fire chief or a police chief or whatever. They don't have to physically be present. There's so much available with the internet, with other public media, that a person doesn't have to be physically present to be very aware of and understand to a deep degree what's needed, what's happening, what people want and need. So it's just like that's not the thing that's going to ensure you that you're going to have a person who is intuitive about what's happening in the town. It's my opinion.
Paul?
Do I really have to talk about this?
No?
Okay, but I will.
You don't have to.
I thought the answer was easy. I'm always for a larger pool. And a larger pool means you don't have a housing restriction. You have to live in town. I still feel that way. However, when you came up, I think I found, right here on page 10, resident of the town or of the Commonwealth. That sort of caught me a little short. I mean, you don't even have to live in the state, and maybe we can't ask them to live in the state, but I can't see anyone coming in from New Hampshire or Maine, which is drivable.
Hampshire is
Well,
30
that-
minutes away.
I know, but they're not familiar with, may not be familiar with state law and all those things
You
that.
know how many municipal employees
Excuse me,
live in New
Mr.
Hampshire?
Chair, let me finish. Okay.
But Paul, if
Hold on, he's the chair. I could, just a minute. Go ahead, Sally, please.
that language is already in the act. That language is already existent. The language that says, said town manager shall be appointed without regard to his or her, or to his political beliefs. Said town manager shall not be required to be a resident of the town of the Commonwealth. That's in the act right now. It then went on to say, when appointed, but shall be a resident of the town during the term of office. We're just suggesting deleting the language about saying that when they're appointed, they don't have to be a resident, but they have to be during the term.
Wait a minute, no, he got me confused.
Do you have page 10 in front of you?
Yeah,
Paul?
right here. Right here.
So the stuff in red, do you have red and black on your page?
Absolutely.
So it's only the red that we're changing, like.
Oh, okay, I see, when appointed.
Yes. So that stuff about resident of the town of the Commonwealth, that was already there.
Right. So you appoint someone from a 2-hour drive, all right? And they don't live in the state. You can still, you want to require them to live in the state, or you want them to live in the town, or it doesn't really matter?
Our proposal, the way the current Town Manager Act reads, is the select board could hire somebody who currently lives in New Hampshire, but they have to move to the town after they're hired.
Right.
During their term of office.
And my position is, I don't like that part of it.
Neither do we, so we suggested getting rid of that
Right,
part.
okay, and to deal with the chair's reaction, which was a 30-minute drive, try it. Try it on a commute, and you're never going to get here in 30 minutes on a normal day. So that's my opinion. All right, now, I'll move away from that. I can't even find this in the paper. There was something about hiring people and wanting a $10,000 budget, and then move it to 28,000, which was a .0.
That's, I'll tell you what that's for.
Yeah,
That's
town manager, what page was that on?
page 9.
Page 9?
So currently, there's language in the Town Manager Act, and it appears at the bottom of page 9, that says that for the purpose of making investigations or surveys, the select board can employ experts, et cetera,
Yeah.
consultants, and incur expenses not exceeding $10,000 a year. That's what the current language says. The committee felt 10,000 was quite low, and we kicked around different numbers for a while, and actually Matt Fichuk very brilliantly suggested, let's have it be a sum equal to 0.02% of that year's annual town budget, which in this year is $28,000. So it's not a bump up hugely, it's just linking it to something and pulling it up above 10,000 and linking it to something that would be easy to compute.
Right.
Can I just quickly with that, I'm fairly certain that that is a provision that I don't believe has ever been used by any select board at any time in town as a result of the fact that in essence what it's there for is, again, if you think of how the process works, town meeting appropriates the money through the process, and then the town manager expends that money. The select board has no authority to expend any money. They're not, that's not authority that they have, except in this one limited area. The town, in essence, says, if they go through this, jump through this, and they want to do an investigation into something, they have a right to be able to get this at this $28,000. Again, to the best of my knowledge, it's never happened. But if, for example, it would have to be a situation in which there was probably some type of a conflict between the select board and the town manager over doing something, or a belief on the part of the select board that the town manager was involved and engaged in some type of activities that required an independent investigation of them, and that's what it's there for. Quite frankly, the amount of money, unimportant, quite honestly. Having that there as a check and balance is probably a value. Again, it's been nice that I don't believe we've ever had to use it, but that's in essence what this is for.
Does it grow yearly, or is it just,
It would based on this particular language.
so
because
it would grow how far? I mean, where would it grow out?
Whoever, if we $1 billion budget, it would be whatever it is.
Well,
but
that was the point of my question. I mean, at what point?
It would always be 0.02%. Again,
So,
This is much ado
so
about nothing,
if we go
quite frankly, is the-
if we go what the percentage you're talking about now, all right, we're going to be, let's say next year, we're going to be around $28,000, if that's accepted.
Yeah.
Okay? And that goes into a line item, I guess, somewhere.
No.
Now, where does it go?
So basically what would happen is the select board would have to have a reason through the specific rationale for an investigation into something. And that money would not be able to be appropriated through normal sources. This is a special source that
Right.
allows the select board to be able to, through the signing of a warrant and giving it to the treasurer, the accountant, whoever it is in there, they give that warrant basically signed upon by them. So it's a really old thing that used to be done. So we're saying, this is much ado about nothing. It's a lot of ringing wheels for something that's never happened. But the reality is that having it there does have value, because it's really there in the event that there's this conflict, and the only way that they can conduct the investigation is to be able to get at this money. The amount of money that's there, in this case, the 0.02%, which was the change that was brought into this, as opposed to having a flat fee of 10 grand, I have no idea what these investigations would cost, because quite frankly, again, we've never done one.
Yeah.
So, but it makes sense, since it's not again, if history is any example, we will continue to expend $0 a year doing this.
Let me
regardless of what the
ask
authorization
this question. that would be a sum of money the selectmen would be able to use for, quote, investigations.
Yeah.
Okay, not to go out and use it to hire personnel or things like that, correct?
No, they would need to be making investigations or surveys.
Right.
And you know, I say to them, I don't know, I guess plausibly, in some land purchase items that the select board has the authority, and this gets into the nuances of the way a municipal corporation works, and the fact that the fact that there's this strange dichotomy at times between the administrative and managerial responsibilities of the town manager and the very, very, very limited managerial and administrative responsibilities that remain with the select board. The select board has no authority to be able to basically appropriate money for themselves. If they, for whatever reason, felt the need to do the survey and the town manager wasn't willing to work with them in order to be able to fund it through Public Works or some other mechanism, they'd have this ability to be able to do it on their own. Again, I don't believe they've ever done it.
No, I'm not, that's not my
No,
question.
it's not a line item, it's a unique statutory component that it would be there, and the signing of a warrant, we don't often have them sign warrants, there's a whole bunch of things that.
Okay, so this time next year, we've had no investigations, and there was $28,000.
No, there's no appropriation.
I didn't say appropriation, I said,
No, what I'm saying is it's not, it doesn't,
we haven't touched the money.
it's not, the money, there is no money.
Okay, but there's going to be.
No.
Okay, all right,
No.
all right.
That's why I say,
So
this
we
is
don't.
much
so
to do
basically,
about nothing.
We don't have a fund. We don't have a fund continually
No,
building.
we don't have
Yeah, that's it,
$10,000
fine.
that every year has been putting into a
Right,
slush
because
fund
then,
someplace.
never mind. I won't
Yeah.
say it.
Thank you. Yeah, no. Mary?
Then tell me.
I don't have any questions, just comment about the residency. When I started on the committee, my thing was they must most definitely have to live in Danvers to experience what we all experience. But
The joy of being a resident.
yes, but going through the process, I went back and forth, and at this point, like what our discussion was, yes, if they want to work here and lead our community, they're going to be involved, hopefully in some way, shape, or form. As far as I was for a resident, a radius, like a 20 or a 30-mile radius. But again, it's up to the select board when interviewing, or the committee, trying to figure out from those applicants, are you going to be here? Are you going to be present in our community? And that's part of the check and balances. And really, a lot of communities nowadays don't have a residency requirement for their town managers. It's just kind of the way it goes, and it creates a bigger pool. And where else was I going with the... And in some respect, too, the town manager, that position is the only position we require to have a residency. Currently, where like the fire chief doesn't have to live here, the police don't have to live here, DPW doesn't have to live here. So why would we be making the town manager? And again, so they know like what we're experiencing. Our select board is part of that. They're part of those decisions for certain things because they do live here. So that kind of was going back and forth on why. But again, I think to not have it does create better opportunities for other folks to apply and get hired here. But again, I think in most communities, not all, when hiring a town manager, hopefully they are really involved in the community. And so far, Jill's been very involved. So, and this is just Jill, but yes, going forward, could be different. But again, at the end of the day, if the select board found that the town manager that they have hired is not actively involved or participating or has no clue in whatever, that can come into their review. So there are some checks and balances there as well. So that was just kind of my opinion on that. But again, no questions on the report for the Town Manager Act. Thank you.
Mary? Arthur?
Mike, did you want to say something before?
I just wanted to say that the whole question of the $28,000
Oh, okay.
was kind of an empirical approach, and we just that, it's been 30 to 50 years since this act was reviewed. $10,000 back then won't buy anything like it will now, vice versa. So, we've got to up this, but in the process of upping it, we want to inflation-proof it. So if we just tie it as a percentage of the annual budget, that number will, over time, rise. That's all I want.
Sorry, I'm taking your job, but I saw him with the hand up. So I'm just going to say that I think you're 100% right on the residency requirement. We're talking like the select board is like a bunch of stupid dopes who are going to hire somebody that lives 100 miles away. They're not going to do that. And if they do it, then they'll be voted out, and the town manager will do a crappy job, and they'll be removed. So, you can either have a residency requirement or you can't, or you don't. If you have you can have a 30-mile radius. Well, that doesn't make sense either, because if you're at one point in the 30 miles, it may take you an hour and a half to get here, and if you're another point, it may take you 25 minutes to get here. So, it's all arbitrary. So, it doesn't, I will say this, from being on the committee to find a new town manager, and Wally and Maureen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we were told that there was something like 4 towns left in the state that had residency requirements. All right, and there's a reason for that. And if you looked at I don't know, what do we have, like 60, 70 resumes? If we limited it to Danvers residents, we would have had like 4. Okay, so are you getting the best person to run your town from that? I'm not saying that somebody from Danvers can't do it, but are you getting the best choice from 4 people rather than 70 people? It's kind of a no-brainer. So I think you guys are right about that. The only other question I have is, I don't really think, and I've been consistent about this, but at the same time, I'm probably going to defer when we get to the point of voting, but I don't really think we need a recall. But the one thing about the recall that doesn't make sense to me is that I think a point is made about the fact that it can't be for a vote, except for it can be for anything. So it can, because it says that it's up to the voters to decide what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So if anything, it conflicts with the 2 sentences conflict with each other, because if you're going to leave it up to the voters, what are the voters going to consider? Right? There's nothing that say you'd have to decide it wasn't about a vote.
Well, if I may, it's procedural too, and I don't know if this answers what you have, but the town clerk is the one that would get the paperwork saying we want to do a recall. And so we were saying, well, how is the town clerk going to know whether or not something it fits within our definition and it's something that can in fact move forward? Well, we say that in this sentence, the forms, let's see, the name of the person whose recall is sought and the grounds of relief of the recall as stated in the affidavit that has to be provided in order to get the recall going. Provided, however, that the vote of an elected official on a matter other than in connection with a conflict of interest violation shall not constitute valid grounds. So if a group came in with, their affidavit saying, we want to begin a recall process against so-and-so, and if their paper said that it was because the person voted on March 24th to do this, the town clerk would say, that's not valid grounds, get out of here.
Okay.
But we wanted then to say that while it is expected that the recall process would only be used to address serious malfeasance or misconduct, the voters themselves shall individually determine whether the grounds listed for recall are sufficient. So we're saying that the town clerk, the bar is set, but the only thing that can't be used is a vote. If the person has made a vote and that's the grounds for the recall that the citizens are bringing, the town clerk can say, nope, doesn't qualify. Anything else, it's not for the town clerk or any of us to decide whether it's sufficient for a recall. the voters decide.
So it
That
could-
was the thought process
So
we
it could be
had.
anything but a vote, anything at all. So if somebody has a vote that they don't like, and now they're going to come up with a reason, that could be anything, because they're really PO'd at the vote. It seems loose to me.
I think the
Doesn't
other.
seem tight enough to me.
The other concern I'd have with it is that as a general rule, town clerks are not interpreters.
Right.
They, in essence, there's a lot of statute and a lot of case law out there that deals with the fact that they are clerks. They do what they're told.
Exactly.
And they don't have discretion to make that decision. For example, if A and B come in with a marriage license, seeking a marriage license, and they meet the very, very minimal requirements, that the clerk has no ability to do that. We don't leave clerks with discretion. In this situation, there does seem to be some level of that, but I also, again, my feeling is the best way to recall people is to vote them out. But again, everybody's been fighting for this for 10 years, and I've
I'm
grown
probably
tired.
going to not, I don't.
I've just grown tired of
It's
dealing
almost like
with it,
never going to
but-
be used, so
Yeah.
I'm not really.
And I think,
gonna-
and it's always funny because that's what people want, but I think the bigger issue in terms of, and this is something that we've had with us all the time, the language has to comply and make sense. And a lot of times, as well-meaning as Mike was when he came before us, the biggest problem wasn't just the philosophical problem with a recall, it was the fact that a lot of the language was a mess. And a lot of the language did
Well,
not adequately.
I wouldn't put it that harshly, Mike.
Well, I know, but it's well-meaning.
It was a little
but-
loose.
But we talked
A little
about,
loose.
things like the budget thing being like like a sort of a moot point. The threshold here, like I grant that the language is open, and someone could conceivably not like a vote and say, well, they're uncivil to people, and that's the grounds for recall. The threshold is, you have to get, within 20 days, you have to get 20% of the voters in Danvers to sign a petition. That is so ridiculously high, it's frankly impossible. I think somebody could shoot somebody in town hall on camera, and you would not be able to obtain 20% of the signatures in that amount of time.
Well, hopefully that's not true, but this process, the
It's very
process.
difficult, but I mean,
that's-
you'd have to do something pretty damn bad to get 20%.
Okay.
Really bad.
But let me just say, so we have that, the first paperwork that comes into the town clerk's office has to have 350 registered voters sign it. So already, that's a pretty high.
That's a big number.
That's a high task. And our intent was the town clerk, all the town clerk has to do is if the reason for the recall is a vote by this person on this board on this date, and the town clerk can say, sorry, that doesn't qualify. Okay, so anything else would, but they have to have 350 people come forward. And then, once the town clerk makes that one threshold question, then, as you say, they have to go out within 20 days and get signatures of at least 20% of the total numbers of voters. So that would be something big. The numbers would be overwhelming, and so it would need to be something serious. It wouldn't be they shot somebody in town hall and that's all.
That would be
I mean,
serious.
I think that would get plenty of signatures, but at any rate,
Yeah, I think the
right.
gray area is covered by the fact that is a huge threshold.
Okay, so who's taking all my time, you two? Let's back
We're
off.
talking about something that we're not supposed to talk about tonight.
No, this is in the thing, Mike.
It is in the.
So all that said, I think the thing that I'm going to do when we get to the point is Mike's been here twice. We sent Mike to a committee. The committee did it, so I think it's a little loose, but when it comes back, I'm not going to, I think I'm going to defer to what we did and what you've done, so that's how I feel about the recall thing at this point. So I don't have anything else.
Wally, do you have anything?
I'm actually pretty good here.
Okay. Great.
I've got to say, Mike Trainer is very, very dedicated. He
He
came
is.
to a lot of our meetings, and he was always, right there answering our questions and helping us sort things out. So,
Well, this really isn't a public hearing, so, unless you have something that's pertinent to,
Pertinent to what you've been discussing?
yeah,
Yes.
okay. Quickly, go to the microphone.
Okay.
Quickly, go to the microphone.
so John Jaworski is a member of the committee.
quickly that this is a really diverse committee, and one of the few things that we were able to have a real consensus on was a desire to increase the involvement and the commitment of the people who were at the town meetings. You can see that thread running through a lot of the things. I appreciate this gentleman's perspective, which I had never thought of, but my concern is that I think there are some really valuable things to kind of bring that about here in Danvers. And I understand that you must do something to legislate intent. That makes a lot of sense. I hope that we're not saying that we just throw up our hands and say, it is what it is, there's nothing we can do about it, people are people, and anything that we might have suggested is really insignificant. Because I do think there are some things that make some sense. One of the things that I did advocate for was a forum where the precinct people would come to the high school, and then they would have these constituents would have an opportunity to meet with them just one day, one night. We thought that that was a very democratic way of helping to include citizens. So I just throw that out to you. You'll probably have to discuss it later, but that was one thing that I thought that we really valued as a committee.
Thank you. Anything else? Well.
Another member of our.
You know, I'm going to be starting, people are going to say I'm a soft chair.
Well, this is in regards, to, and I actually have a question for you, also in regards to reducing the number of town meeting members down to 15. Is state law somehow tied to our town meeting charter in
It
particular?
is state law.
No, so different towns have different numbers of town meeting members per precinct. It has nothing to do with the population. Saugus has 5 town meeting members for each of their 10 precincts. Swampscott has
Is a great
54.
And that municipality, and people from Saugus were mad at me, is a great example of how, why a small number is bad.
And Swampscott has 54
Yeah.
per 6 of their 6 precincts. So I don't think it's state law that we have to have 18.
That I
And
don't-
it's fine if people just don't think we should go down to 15, but I just don't want it to be just deferred to what the town council said, if it's not actually accurate for state law.
I agree, I would like to see a written explanation.
I would too, yeah, that's really my, like, and it's fine if people just disagree,
Just a
but it's
one-page
not
brief on why we
Yeah,
can't.
law.
and I'm sure the town manager heard that, so we'll probably see one.
The town council would have to provide an actual opinion. I mean, that's what we'd have to have.
So we look forward to reconvening for an actual public hearing when we have a warrant before us, and that will be sometime in early to mid-January.
We really appreciate you guys taking the time to hear us out. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a
Appreciate
lot.
it.
Thanks,
It was
everyone.
wonderful to have you back.
There's a seat.
I thought it was yours.
No, you didn't. And he didn't know.